Okay, welcome to 6.1 video on integers. So we're going to start with example 1, writing positive and negative integers. So the directions say write a positive or negative integer that represents a situation. So the first situation you're given, it says a contestant gains 250 points on a game show. So we have to understand that the word gains obviously means, and it's indicating greater than 0. So you're going to use a positive integer. So positive integer would be like this, positive 250. We've always learned that if it's positive, we always just write it as 250. So I'm not going to want to see you write it this way on a test or a quiz. It's always just going to be written like this. A contestant gains 250 points on a game show. So gains is our key indicator that it's positive. Let's try the next one. Gasoline freezes at 40 degrees below 0. So the word below is indicating that it's below 0, so that's a pretty easy one. So the number has to be less than 0. So we would use a negative integer, and it would look like this. Now this one, you don't have a choice. You have to write the negative sign for the answer, or it wouldn't make sense. Example 2 is graphing integers. So we're going to graph each integer and its opposite. So our example gives us 3. So if on a test it said graph each integer and its opposite and it gave you 3, we would start off with drawing out a number line, and we would make sure that we always start 0 right here in the middle. Sorry, that one's kind of hard to see. Let's try black. So we'd start right here in the 0. And if we're graphing 3, we're going to go this way at least a couple extra, so we went to 5. And this way we would go negative a couple extra to negative 5. So the goal here is to take on the number line where it says 3, you're going to put a dot on that actual line just like it's on here, and that indicates graphing 3. So you did this part. Then we're going to do negative 3 is the same distance from 0 as 3. So here's your starting position. Okay, we went 1, 2, 3. If I'm going to graph its opposite, I'm going to go start at the 0 and go 1, 2, 3, and graph negative 3. So it seems kind of easy, but when you get into fractions and things like that, it gets a little bit more difficult. So you can see all we're doing is we start with what we're graphing of 3, we graph it, and then we take from the same point at 0, the same distance from 0, we go to the negative. All right, let's look at another one. So this would be the same scenario, only this time we have negative 2 is what we're going to be starting with. So we're going to graph each integer and its opposite. So you need to pause and take some time to write out your number line. We start with graphing negative 2. So you can always remember to start at 0, 1, 2. So once you go to negative 2 and you graph it by putting the circle on there, you're going to go back to 0 where we started, and then you're going to go 2 is the same distance from 0 as negative 2. So you go 1, 2, just like we did on the opposite. We went 1, 2, we're going 1, 2. So you're just putting the integer and its opposite on a number line. I want you to copy this down real quick because it says you can think of the negative sign as referring to the opposite of a number. And so in example 2b, what we just completed, it says you can read negative 2 as the opposite of 2. So if you think about it that way, it's just the opposite of positive 2. If I have $2 and I have the opposite of $2, then I have negative $2. So that's all it's really meaning. Please jot that down. Here are some practice problems to try that I took right from the book. So the first one that's labeled number 4 and 5, it says graph the number that represents a situation on a number line. So that's kind of one that we didn't talk about, but you're going to make a one number line and you're just going to graph that based on the vocabulary. And then the second 2, 8, and 9, it says write a positive or negative integer that represents the situation. So I just want to know what number it's talking about, if it's a positive or if it's a negative. And then 16 and 17 says graph the integer and its opposite. So that's what we did in example 2. And that is why I left on these two things here so you can see what examples they came from. So if you have 16 and have negative 5, you're going to graph the integer, which is this one, and then you're going to also graph its negative, or its opposite, which this case would be 5. So you're going to graph both of those on one number line, just like we did in example 2. All right, go ahead and pause it, and then I will have the answers for you. And here are your answers. I just took them from the book, so they're right here. If you're graphing a number for the situation, you're just literally a football team loses 3 yards, so it would be negative integer. And for number 5, the temperature is 6 degrees below, so it would be negative 6. And then for number 8 and 9, you are saying a withdrawal, so you have to recognize withdrawal means to take out. Okay, airplane climbs, so it goes above. And then graph the integer and its opposite. So for 16, you start at 0 and you go negative 5. And then you do the same amount at 0, but in the opposite direction to a positive 5. And the same thing for number 17, start at negative 8, go up 8. All right, that concludes 6.1 video.